Afternoon. That was, you know, when you see something that reminds you of a time long gone, and it brings back fond memories of when you were a child and the place where you grew up. Well, I had that today, experience today. I was on YouTube and I was watching a channel, and it's a guy that does a lot of walks around the Essex coastline, and he's done the one from Burnham on Crouch up towards Bradwell, but he then diverts off the main sea wall and goes into Southminster, where I grew up as a child. And I did do that walk from Burnham on Crouch. Me and my mate Alec walked all the way from Burnham on Crouch all the way up to Bradwell, St Peter's on the Wall. And then we walked from St Peter's on the Wall back into Bradwell and found a shop, and I downed 2 cans of Quattro fizzy drink and was very ill. And so was Alec. But kids being kids. And then today I was watching another video he did from Southend Ferries to Burnham. He didn't get as far as Burnham, he got as far as Hawthorne. I think he could have made it to Burnham if he pushed himself a little bit harder, but he'd run out of food and drink, and his time was getting on, so he cut it short at Hawthorne. And it was the landscape, what I remembered as a child. Not much had changed. I mean, when he was doing the walk from Burnham on Crouch to sort of towards Bradwell, there was a lot of wind turbines and solar panels and that, which when me and Alec walked up to St Peter's on the Wall in Bradwell, it was never there. And so the landscape changed a bit. But when you look at this guy did the walk from Southend Ferries towards Burnham, not you got to Burnham, the landscape hadn't changed much. It was still the same. There was no wind turbines, there was no solar panels. And I reckon certain landmarks like pylons running along the top of a crest of a hill, and what I thought was Canewdon Church and Holbridge, the other side of the Crouch. And I remember all that as a kid. And I've never thought, living in Norfolk, that I never thought I'd see that landscape ever again. And I put it to the back of my mind and I'd completely forgotten all about it. And it brought back so fond memories that I sat there and watched the video and I was just totally enthralled by it. And when it finished, I don't know what it was inside me. It just stirred something up inside me that for a long time, and I'm going to admit this, and as a man to admit something like this is how moving it was. I haven't cried in like years, even when I was going through some really traumatic stuff with like ex-girlfriends and fallouts with family and that. And I'm the sort of bloke that's not afraid to admit that I've cried in the past. And literally 20 minutes ago, I'm sitting on my sofa at home in my flat in my house, and I was bawling my bloody eyes out like a baby. I don't know what it did. I don't understand what it was. It was just a video of an area of land, a part of Essex that I grew up in as a child, and it just set some emotion off in me that I can't explain. When I used to go to these areas when I was with my mum and dad, or when we were with like friends of mine, even when we was in the army cadets, me and my brother, it was a massive exercise the army cadets put on. We ended up in wooden ferries and walked along the River Crouch back to Holbridge and done a river crossing. Oh, Christ, it was crazy. But it was all that sort of stuff, and I spent quite a bit of time along that sort of stretch of the river, sometimes with friends and family, and sometimes when I grew up and got to my sort of like early to mid teens, and I spent a lot of time there, and it's quite desolate along that area. There's not a lot of people about, and there's not a lot of like sort of buildings and physical sort of human habitat. It's all farmland. but it's so peaceful and quiet, and it's quite a spiritual sort of place to be. You know, you sit there and you have periods where you're just thinking about nothing but thinking about things like, you know, what's this all this about, and this it's just weird. It's just a landscape which, I don't know, it becomes part of you, and you never forget it, and it was home, and I think that's what stirred the emotion in me, that it was an area that I recognised as home. Home is not just where you live, as in a house. Home is the area you live in, you know. And that part of Essex is called the Dengie Peninsula, or Dengie Hundred. It's called the Dengie Hundred because there's loads of little villages. And Southminster was quite a big village. It is quite a big village today. But it was all the other little villages around it. Burnham on Crouch and Southwood and Ferries and Norththorne and Fambridge and places like Tillingham and Bradwell going out right to the North Sea. And then you've got big towns like Malden, and Wickford was quite a big town. We lived in Southminster. We moved from Southminster to Wickford. So we went from one end of the Southminster branch to the other, which is the railway line that used to run along there. And that railway line, the Southminster branch, I travelled up and down that as a kid, right from the day when I was, you know, probably 4 or 5, even younger than that, to sort of up to the point in my late sort of teens, early 20s. A lot of memories, fond memories, a lot of memories I forgot, a lot of friends, a lot of family down there. As much as Norfolk is now my home, and my home is in Hindleveston, and my job's in Falsham, and that's where I live now, and I'm quite content where I live. Very nice part of the world is Norfolk. Obviously, I didn't realise that there was a part of me which is very much in Essex, and that part of the country where I grew up as a child will always be my home. And after watching that video, that'd be very nice if I ever get the chance to go back there and visit. Yeah, but that was very emotional, and I won't be. I'm not. You know, I'm not too proud to say that. Yeah, I was blabbing like a baby. Anyway, I'm gonna leave you with that thought. Not about political stuff. Not about stupid stuff like the TV breaking down. That was about me and my life. If anybody's interested in these walks that I've seen on YouTube, obviously drop a comment in the message in the comments below, and I'll ping over a link so you can watch them. Anyway, on that note, I'm gonna go and wash my face now, because I've got bits of tears running down my face. A bit of a snotty nose. I'll see you later. Take care. Bye bye.